The Pixels from Super Paper Mario are, well, they're not as good as the partners from 1,000 Year Door, I'll say that much, but they do add to the platforming, so they are a nice touch to the game. So I decided, let's make you guys vote on your favorite Pixel from Super Paper Mario, and there was a total of 50 votes. I really do appreciate that. I did include all the optional Pixels this time, and I decided to remove Tippy from it, because even though she does have an ability, I just didn't include it. So, let's just get started on this list. But actually, before we get started, I just hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for that. But we're not going to stop there, because someone suggested that I try to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. That's going to be really insane, and I'm going to need every single person that's into the Mario RPGs to subscribe to actually help me reach that goal. So, if you're into the Mario RPGs at all, and you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate that. But other than that, let's actually get started. Fleet got 0 votes, and completely understandable why, because I don't think many people really like Fleet that much, mainly because he's barely used in the game. I can probably point out maybe 5 times. I mean, I know you have to use him a couple times in 4-3 and 4-2. I know you have to use him once to get the flop side, and that's all I can really think of. I mean, there's just not many reasons to use Fleet, but I know for a fact people have said that if you use Fleet on normal enemies, they'll get dizzy, but there's no point in that where you can either use something like Slim, where you can just make yourself invisible, or you can use Carry to make yourself jump higher, so you can actually avoid the enemy attacks. But most importantly, why don't you just use someone like Hudge or Boomer to do more damage, or have somewhat of like a landmine? So, there's just no reason for me to really think of using Fleet, which is why no one really voted for it. This is the only Pixel that got 0 votes, and after this Pixel, there's going to be a lot of ties. We have the first tiebreaker on this list that involved 2 Pixels. The first one was Piccolo, and the next Pixel is the one that's up next on this list. And credit where credit is due, Piccolo almost won this tiebreaker. It just needed 2 more votes to get a majority. It got 9 votes out of 19. That's insane, because Piccolo sucks. But to be fair, the Pixel that I was going up against is not much better. I mean, it's a tiny bit better, but it's not that much better, because Piccolo is worthless in my opinion. You have to go through this huge trading cycle. Okay, it's not that huge, but it's definitely big enough where it's not really worth it. So Piccolo itself, it can do 3 things. It can change your jump sounds, which is useless. It can remove the block that you're seeing on screen, which is pretty much useless. And the third thing is that it can remove curses from Cursias, which I can see being useful, but the only problem with it is that the only annoying curse from a Cursia is the one that sends you right back to flip side. That's the only one that's actually annoying to me, because the other ones I'm just gonna deal with. So, yeah, in my opinion, Piccolo, there's no use for me to use it, so it's pretty understandable why it's pretty low on this list. I personally would put it smack down at the bottom, because I would never use this thing. At the very least, you have to use Fleet a couple times in the game, but with Piccolo, there's 0 reason to use it. Dottie was the Pixel that won this tiebreaker. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can kind of tell why this tiebreaker was so hard and so close, because both these Pixels are pretty bad. These are probably the bottom 2 Pixels in the game for me. I mean, Dottie, you use him in 5-4, and you use him to get into itty bitty shops. That's the only times you use him at all, and even then, itty bitty shops don't really have that many good things. So, Dottie's pretty useless, and maybe you can use him to avoid enemies better, but I'm pretty sure that's just literally the placebo effect, because you don't jump as high when you're small. You could just go into normal, like if you're playing as Mario, you could just jump over the enemy, or kill it because it's not a turn-based RPG battle system. Or, if you really want to use a Pixel, use Carry to jump over the enemy. Or, I don't know, switch to Bowser and use his flames. That's all you have to do. There is no reason, in my opinion, to actually use Dottie. It's why it's my least favorite non-optional Pixel in Super Paper Mario. Slim isn't a terrible Pixel like Dottie or Piccolo, but I just don't think he's really that great. I mean, you don't really use Slim that much throughout the game. I mean, you use him in Chapter 2 sometimes. I mean, barely to be honest, but that's really it. You don't really use him after that. I mean, I know for a fact people did mention that if you stand still with Slim, then no enemies can hit you. And I can definitely see the use in that, which is why it definitely got some votes. But I just don't really think that's that practical. I'd rather use carry to get out of there if I need to. I could also use like a boomer to do like a landmine. I could use Cudge for more damage, maybe Thudley. I mean, there's just no reason to use Slim because you're just delaying the inevitable, to be honest. That's all you're really doing. Just kill the enemy as fast as possible. Don't try to avoid it. That's mainly why I don't think Slim is that useful for me personally, but at the very least, for this Pixel, I can actually see the use for it, which is definitely something you can't really say about Dottie or Piccolo or really Fleep. At number 7, we have Thudley, and Thudley barely, I mean barely, beat Slim in the tiebreaker. I mean, it got one more vote, which is really funny, but it does make sense, because Thudley has a bit of a better side ability, and you're using Thudley throughout the game more. I mean, all you're really doing with Thudley, though, is just ground pounding on switches, which isn't really creative, but at least it's kind of easy to control, and it's not as slow as what you have to do with Slim, so I guess it's a bit better. And his side ability is definitely better than Slim's, because you can do double damage with the ground pound, even though I don't really think it's the best way to do double damage. I think Cudge does it better, mainly because it's instant using the hammer with Cudge instead of Thudley, where you have that startup lag with the ground pound, even though I think it's a fine choice. I don't think it's a bad one, I think it's fine. You can use Thudley well, but personally, I would rather use Cudge, or maybe Boomer, or just Bowser's Flames in general. So, in my personal opinion, I think Thudley is perfect here to be at number 7. Throw won this tiebreaker. By a lot. Like, a lot. It got 9 votes out of 14, that's over half of the votes, and that's triple what Thudley got. So, yeah, it's pretty safe to say that Throw is definitely the best Pixel out of these 3, and I'd have to agree, because I'm pretty sure it has the best side ability out of these 3 Pixels, and you're using this Pixel the most out of the 3. Now, yes, that is probably because it's the first Pixel in the game, but I don't care, you're using it the most, which definitely is a big highlight for it. And I will point out that the side ability is pretty good compared to the other 2, mainly because you can pick up enemies and then throw them, which means that you can hit other enemies, damaging those enemies and the enemy that you just threw. This also works for enemies like the rock ones, I don't know what they're called, but the ones you can't do any damage to when you're jumping on them, and that's really the only thing you can do in 1-3. You can't really do anything else. You can maybe use items, but since you have throw, you can actually damage them now, which is pretty good. So yeah, I think Throw is actually a pretty good Pixel. I wouldn't say it's amazing or anything, it is basic, but it definitely deserves to be at the middle of this list. This was the biggest shocker on the list, but it makes sense. Dashel only got 5 votes, and it lost the tiebreaker. It legitimately lost a tiebreaker, but it makes sense. You wanna know why? Because even though Dashel is a phenomenal Pixel, it's really fun to use, I've never used it. Most people haven't used it, because they don't feel like going through the pit of 100 trials and Flipside. They just don't think it's worth it, and well, I don't think it's worth it. It's not really that fun to go through it, it's kind of boring, it's kind of repetitive, so not many people have done it. It's just not worth it for many people, including me, which is why Dashel is only number 5 here. I mean, it's a great Pixel, but most people just don't think it's worth it. Barry and Dashel, I forgot to mention this in the Dashel segment. So Barry and Dashel is the last tiebreaker on this list, and Barry beat Dashel with 1 vote. Again, another tiebreaker where the Pixel beat the other one with 1 vote. But this time, I don't really think it's that deserved. I think Dashel is much better than Barry. Even though I will give credit where credit is due, Barry is much easier to get than Dashel. Literally, all you have to do is talk to Barry. He's in 3-1 once you save Tippy. That's all you have to do, and bam, Barry is yours. And you get a temporary shield that lasts like 3 seconds. The problem with it, though, is that you stop all movement, and it's kind of awkward to use. I don't know, I'd personally rather just use something like a Boomer or a Cudge, or maybe just carry to get you out of there. If you have Dashel, just jump up really fast and run away. Yeah, I don't know, I really wouldn't use Barry in this situation, but to be fair, it's pretty easy to get compared to Dashel, and I mean, it's pretty easy to use, kind of, so I guess it kind of deserves to be in the top half of this list. Number 4, maybe a bit too high, but the top half, it does make sense. These top 3 Pixls are definitively the top 3 Pixls in the game. I mean, it's easy. Kudge is definitely the worst out of the 3, but that's not saying much because Kudge is still a really good Pixel. Kudge is a hammer. That's all I really gotta say. It does double the damage compared to what Mario, Luigi, and Peach do, and it's really fast, unlike Thudley. So, Kudge is very useful to use. I mean, you can use him on the rock enemies that you can't do any damage to when jumping. You can deal damage to spiky enemies, which is really nice. And I'm pretty sure you can hurt Cursias with it, which is pretty nice. Even though I'd rather use Bowser's Flame with those. So, yeah, Kudge is a great Pixel that does a lot of damage. The only thing I want to point out is that I do see some people just rather picking Bowser's Flames over Kudge, because you do have to get closer than with Bowser's Flames, because Bowser's Flames has range. So, I guess it does make sense why Kudge is number 3, but it's still a great Pixel. Boomer is straight up just C4. Like, legit, we're just using C4 in a Mario game. So, it makes sense though. It makes sense why this Pixel was rated very high because of it. Because it's literally a remote bomb. You get to time it whenever you want to blow it up, which is very nice. I will say that it does blow up after a bit, but the respawn time for it is not long at all. It's maybe like 2 seconds at most, which is very nice. I really like Boomer. You get to just blow up bombs whenever you really want to. You're going to be using Boomer a lot throughout this game, which is a very good thing. So yeah, Boomer, overall, one of the best ways to deal damage in the game, and you're going to be using it just normally to blow up stuff. So it's a perfect Pixel in my opinion. But, of course, it's not the best Pixel in the game, and we all know what everyone voted for. Carrie is the best female Pixel in the game by far, and if you're wondering why I'm saying female Pixel, it's because I know for a fact Carrie is a girl, because in my original Pixel ranking, I called Carrie a guy, and so many people corrected me on it. I know Carrie's a girl, I just didn't care because they're all Pixels. They're Pixels. You can barely tell a gender just by looking at them, so I didn't care. I just called all of them he or boy. It doesn't matter. They're a Pixel. If I call Carrie a him here, don't blast me in the comments, but Carrie is the best Pixel in the game by far. It's really easy to unlock her because all you have to do is just go into the jail in 3-4 and then rescue her from it. And now you can ride on spikes. But most importantly, you get to ride way faster than you are just walking around, which is really all that people remember about Carrie. And, well, it makes sense. It's really helpful in the waste of Chapter 6. I mean, just in general, moving around is much better when you're using Carrie, which is why Carrie is easily the best Pixel in the game. Now, yes, you may say Dashel is the best, which for the people that voted for, I do understand. The problem with it, though, is that people didn't want to go in the pit of 100 trials, like I mentioned in the Dashel segment. With Carrie, you could just easily rescue her, and then you can have a way faster movement section than just walking, which is why she's the best. Thank you guys for watching this video. My next video will be on the Paper Jam polls, so I hope you guys stay tuned for that. Make sure to subscribe if you lasted this long. Other than that, G-bye.